Alright, today I will be responding to one of the advocates' claim, which was child beauty pageants have a negative effect on the participants. And as a reminder, her three secondary claims were: one, child beauty pageant negatively affect their beauty ideal; two, child beauty pageant overly sexualize little girls; three, child beauty pageant negatively affects that child's health. Right. So she goes on, starting with her first secondary claim, with the supporting points saying it teaches them that being pretty and skinny will get them ahead in life, and it could also lead to negative self-esteem if they are not considered pretty enough or if they don't win. The evidence she uses doesn't really correlate to her first supporting point, which teaches them pretty and skinny will get them ahead in life. It could be the audience can make an inference that it kind of relates to it, but she does not directly give evidence. And for her second point, which states that it could lead to negative self-esteem if they're not considered pretty enough or don't win, I would like to make a counterclaim here saying that participating in the beauty pageant, solely by participating in the beauty pageant competition, they build their self-esteem and confidence. A writer, Lalan Maliakal, a writer for Puzzle on child beauty pageant, she states, at a very young age that the child learns discipline, patience, and confidence. The pride of standing and modeling in front of an audience instills self-confidence and a sense of accomplishment. So these participants, they gotta be on stage, walking around, smiling, waving, and also has to be stable at the same time. Sandy Palmer, a judge for child beauty pageants, also states, the children can get in front of a class and give a school report because of the self-esteem and confidence gained in pageant competition. Furthermore, her second secondary claim, which states that child beauty pageant overly sexualize little girls, she has three supporting points, which talks about swimsuit competitions, the way they walk and perform, and how it could be dangerous because they could be targeted by child predators. Well, for her first 2 points, she doesn't really have evidence why swimsuits and the way they walk and perform are overly sexualizing. We have to kind of take her word for it. But her third point, which says that it could harm because childhood predators are more likely to target because of child beauty pageants, there is no real good evidence in that. She does use a quote that says that the sexual offender who was arrested and who was being charged, he states, most people fantasize about having sex with children. This is kind of irrelevant because obviously a sex offender who's arrested and is being tried is going to defend himself by most people want to have sex with children. But according to Chelsea's Place, a child advocacy center, it states that more than 90% of the abusers are people that children know, love, and trust. So the claim that my advocate is making is that out of that 10%, out of the 10% of the abusers, they target children because of child beauty pageants, but there's no real good evidence in that. Furthermore, her third point, which states that child beauty pageant negatively affects that child's health, she has 2 points, which says high levels of caffeine intake can lead to cardiovascular problems, and second one, which is tanning. She uses evidence about some mother making go-go juice, which is half Red Bull and half Mountain Dew, and she feeds it to her kids, but she has no statistics of the beauty pageants taking caffeine or why they take caffeine, which could strengthen her argument, but she does not include. And her second point, which is tanning, she goes on saying that tanning is part of beauty pageants, but in the judging criteria of beauty pageants, the four categories are facial beauty, creativity, stage presence, and overall appearance. Yeah, tanning could be optional in these judging criteria, but if it is optional, if not forbidden, and not all participants, it's not clear to us if all participants do tan or use spray tan. In addition, in some competitions such as Miss Heart of the USA pageant programs, spray tan is actually banned from using on participants. And furthermore, the question arises from this point is that, is it necessarily the child beauty pageant negatively affecting the child's health, or is it their parents who usually push them to do tanning and take the go-go juice and take caffeine? In conclusion, my advocate's major claim is supported with irrelevant evidence and is wrong. Thank you.
All right, the primary and secondary claims are labeled pretty clearly, and you just follow that structure, so that's pretty easy. On the first point, you challenge the application of the evidence, but you don't really explain what is wrong with the evidence and how it's being used there. You did have some counterclaim evidence that I thought was pretty effective, talking about how these things actually build self-esteem and help them develop their abilities by participating in the pageant. So I thought that does apply to the issue that's being talked about, although it's a tangential thing, because I assume that some of the issues that the kids supposedly get down the long run have a lot to do with other problems they might face. Like in the other speech, we heard eating disorders and that kind of stuff that was being talked about. This was not as specific about those things, and that's why I thought that your counter arguments are pretty reasonable in that situation. On the second point, on over-sexualizing the girls, I thought that you asked a reasonable question why these things are the case. Why is this perceived as being sexualizing of the girls? It's an okay question, and you've got a good press on it, but I think maybe you don't have any evidence of your own, but maybe you could think of a hypothetical here. I mean, it's not as if these little kids are wearing G-strings and walking out on the, I don't think, that kind of stuff, when, they got a one piece, they're wearing a thong or something like that, that would be a little bit weird. There are probably examples where you can say they're just wearing standard swimwear that any kid might wear in this situation. Is it fashioned up to make it look exquisite and maybe a little bit more adult? That might be the case, but is that the same thing as sexualizing the kids? I think that's a problem. I thought your response to the sex offender thing was pretty straightforward. Listening to a sex offender is pretty screwy in the first place. And then the second argument on that, I think you've got the right idea on the first thing you say. 90% of the kids who are abused in this way are abused by somebody that they know. It's somebody in their family, a family friend, something like that. So the likelihood that it's the pageant that's producing this effect is extremely small. But then you almost concede, so the other 10% must be that way. I don't think that that's what it means, but that seems to be what you're willing to concede, and I don't think that that's what you want to do. That was a little bit of a problem. On the health issues, you made some reasonable presses on that. There's no statistics on this particular thing. I did like the counter evidence that you had on the tanning thing, because you say, in fact, we have at least one of these pageants where they specifically prohibit this. I don't know what the health issue is of spray tanning. I don't remember if the advocate presented any particular information. And on the caffeine issue, you at the end, I thought you had the real argument that you want to be presenting, that this is not the pageant that's producing this, it's the parents. And we've only got one example of a parent who's gone a little crazy on this. I don't know how typical that is, and that's, I think, the press that you want to make. See, there's no statistical data on this. This is all anecdotal stuff, but that people find that freaks them out without having anything to generalize or justify from. Okay, thank you.